If you're breaking down a Type 1 VW engine or putting one together after rebuilding it, you need to know about the case line fasteners that hold the case together. This video is a reference guide to those fasteners. The two halves of the engine sit like this, and remember they go like this. So this part meets up with this part, and this part meets up with this part. I hope someone finds this a useful reference guide, and I hope you enjoy.
Here are the two case halves separately. The left case half on the stand is on the picture on the left, the right case half on the right. I have circled the top of the case, but remember that the two halves are mirror images of each other. So here is the front of the case, the end that goes next to the flywheel. Starting from the front of the case, here is bearing number 1, the thrust bearing, the one next to the flywheel. Is bearing number 2, number 3, and then number 4, the bearing back by the crankshaft accessory pulley. Let's talk about the hardware that's on the case parting line. For starters, let's look at the forward upper corner of the case. My guess is the hole in this boss in the left side of the case that doesn't have a corresponding hole in the right side is a lifting eye for lifting the engine in the factory. This is an alignment pin. There's a pin on the left side of the case. There's a hole it goes into on the right side of the case. There is another one in the lower rear end of the case. They're not fasteners. They don't have any threads, so they don't hold anything together, but they hold the case in alignment as the case goes together. Holding the case together first are the main bearing studs. There are 2 per main bearing saddle. The studs for 1, 2, and 3 are very large because they're carrying the load of holding the crankshaft still against the load of the piston power strokes. From the flywheel end of the case, the studs for bearing 1, bearing 2, bearing 3, and again bearing 4. The rest of the fasteners hold the case together around the edges. The Tom Wilson book states, Type 1 through 3 cases have 13. Of these, 3 are bolts. The longest bolt is at the case's top, the others fit in the bottom. The remaining 10 fasteners are studs and nuts. Along the top of the case, there are 3 studs that stick out of the left side of the case through holes in the right side, here, here, and here. There is 1 stud that sticks out of the right side of the case into the left. All remaining studs are in the left side. And 1 hole near the front for the 1 through bolt at the top. Down the back of the case, we pass the studs for the number 4 main bearing, and then there is another stud at the top of the oil pump and a through hole at the bottom of the oil pump at the bottom rear corner of the case. 3 studs along the bottom of the case, 1 last through bolt hole at the front lower corner of the case. And last, the 2 studs around the case camshaft bore plug on the case front wall. I guess the load on the camshaft thrust bearing is light enough that it can be held by the lower stud on the number 3 bearing and this stud on the bottom of the case. You can see the webbing that carries this cam bearing load.
Thanks for watching that video. The next video in the series will be prepping the case, putting the case together, and torquing down the bolts. I hope you stick around for the series, which will end with the car getting started and never stop figuring stuff out.